Why does the United States sell weapons to 103 countries around the world? From cutting-edge fighter jets to advanced missile systems, U.S. arms sales play a huge role in global politics and economics. But what's driving these massive deals? Is it all about money, strategic alliances, or something deeper? Join me as we dive into the world of international arms trade, uncover the reasons behind these sales, and explore their impact on global security. If you enjoy interesting discussions on international affairs, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell icon so you never miss out on our latest deep dives. Let's get started! The United States, one of the world's most powerful nations, decided to engage in the weapons trade. And it's about more than just making a profit. It's about power, influence, and strategic positioning. It's about creating alliances, maintaining influence, and sometimes preserving the status quo. The U.S. became the world's leading arms supplier in the early 20th century and emerged as a global power. World War I was an essential moment marking the first significant instance of the U.S. selling arms on an international scale. These transactions were initially driven by alliances and the necessity of warfare as the U.S. supplied its allies with weapons needed to fight common enemies. Fast forward to World War II, and the arms trade had grown exponentially. The United States, now a fully fledged superpower, was supplying arms to over 40 countries, strengthening its geopolitical standing while fueling the war machines of its allies. Then came the Cold War era, a time of tense global politics and the threat of nuclear annihilation. The arms trade became a key component of the U.S. strategy to contain the spread of communism. It was during this time that the U.S. began supplying arms to regimes that were ideologically aligned or strategically important, regardless of their human rights record. This era paved the U.S.'s position as a major global arms supplier, with its weapons reaching every corner of the globe. As the 20th century gave way to the 21st, arms trade continued to evolve at the end of the Cold War. It didn't end the arms sales. Instead, the U.S. shifted its focus to combating terrorism and maintaining global security. The arms trade became a tool for strengthening alliances, securing strategic interests, and supporting friendly governments. The U.S. is selling weapons to more than 100 countries because of three main reasons, and those are for political influence, economic benefits, and maintaining global security balance. First off, political influence arms trade is not just about selling weapons, it's also about building and maintaining alliances, establishing trust, and exerting influence when the U.S. sells weapons to a country. It builds a relationship the receiving country becomes somewhat dependent on the U.S. for its security needs. This gives the U.S. a certain level of influence over the country's foreign and domestic policy decisions. By arming certain countries, the U.S. can counterbalance the influence of opponents. In other cases, supplying weapons to friendly nations can help stabilize volatile regions by bolstering the defense capabilities against internal or external threats. Now let's talk about economic benefits. The arms industry is a major part of the U.S. economy. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that employs hundreds of thousands of people across the country. And also, exporting military hardware helps improve the U.S. trade balance, as arms sales are high-value transactions. Finally, there's the issue of maintaining global security balance. The world is a complex place with many countries competing for power and influence. The U.S., as one of the world's superpowers, has a vested interest in maintaining a certain balance of power by selling weapons to its allies. The U.S. can help ensure that no single country or group of countries becomes too powerful. So now, we know the U.S. is selling weapons to more than 100 countries. But why? What would they give the U.S. in return? The American weapons come with prospects that these countries will help the U.S. project its influence and its power all over the globe. So what is the U.S. expecting in return? The most common thing is friendship. Weapons are one of the most effective ways for the U.S. to get other governments on its side. And so, it's a goal of almost every weapons deal. But some countries have more to offer than others. The U.S. is in the NATO alliance with most of these countries. So the U.S. sells them weapons to make their defenses as strong as possible and to prepare them for the possibility that they may have to fight a war together. Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014, and so the U.S. is selling Ukraine weapons, and in exchange, the U.S. is stopping Russia from conquering it and other countries in the region. In the Middle East, the U.S. sells weapons to several countries as a way to counter its other enemy, Iran. The primary example that gets a huge number of weapons from the U.S. is Israel. But the U.S. also sells weapons to countries that control vital resources that it needs. In the case of Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, there is a huge oil resource. But a vital resource can also mean a strategic passageway, like the Suez Canal in Egypt, where a lot of the world's shipping goes through. By selling them weapons, the U.S. is asking these countries to protect and give them access to these resources. In Africa, the U.S. sells weapons to many governments, not just to secure resources, but also to try and make them more stable. War and coups have made many regions in Africa volatile and unpredictable, and the U.S. hopes that by selling weapons to these governments, it can help them stay in power and maintain the status quo. On the contrary, China, a major U.S. rival, is pushing to assert its control over this region, and the U.S. is responding by selling weapons to countries standing in its way. This comprehensive approach has allowed the U.S. to maintain strong relationships with its allies, while ensuring its own national security. However, there are a lot of critics about it. While arms sales have many strategic benefits, they also come with risks and ethical considerations. This is ongoing debate about the potential for these weapons to be used in conflicts that may cause civilian casualties, human rights abuses, or contribute to regional arms races. In summary, the U.S. sells weapons to a wide array of countries to promote its strategic, economic, and political interests, while navigating complex ethical and geopolitical challenges. But most of all, the U.S. is getting a lot in return. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more content like this one. Thanks for watching. Until next time.